When we think of the Casio G-Shock, we think of ruggedness, we think of toughness, we think of what it can do that other brands can't. And that's why we're at the most northerly ski slope in the world in Finland. Currently, it's -20. And what we're gonna do is a brief review of this watch and test it to the limits. And luckily enough, we have a friend to help us do that. We have a snowmobile. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And today we're covering the Casio Mudmaster, the resistance aspect, the specs aspect, everything that you need to know about this watch. We're off the snowmobiles now, and we're in somewhere, well, it's not exactly warm, but it's a little bit warmer than the hill. Dive into the specs before we go any further. And the way that I would liken this watch is kind of to a tank. It's very unnecessary, it's big, it's bold, but it's undeniably awesome. When we look at the watch industry nowadays, everybody is getting smaller. Everybody is shrinking down their case sizes and like smaller models. But G-Shock and Casio have kind of gone the opposite direction. They're kind of easily identifiable because of how big and bold they are. I mean, we look at Ed Sheeran's Casio G-Shock, it's bright yellow, I'm pretty sure it is, and it's pretty big and it's pretty bold. The same goes for the Mudmaster. It comes in at 58.7 mil in length and 52.1 mil in diameter. So this watch is a chunky monkey. It is a big boy, but that's kind of what makes it a G-Shock. Again, I'm gonna liken it to a tank. It's so unnecessary, but it's so undoubtedly cool. Now this does come in at 16.2 mil in thickness. Again, that is pretty thick, but it has a ton of features shoved in there, and one of which we're testing at the moment. We're testing the thermometer. This watch is actually surprisingly light for how big it is, how bulky it is. It comes in at 114 grams, and that's primarily because it's made mostly of resin, that iconic resin that we're kind of used to from Casio and G-Shock, but also it has metal, it has stainless steel on there as well. Now, this watch actually goes to 200 meters of water resistance, and it's pretty resistant to everything. So let me just run through quickly all the resistances it has. This watch is shock resistant, vibration resistant, mud resistant, and it has a carbon core guard structure. When we actually look at the case of this watch, it is extremely futuristic. It looks like a robot from the future. It's very angular, very aggressive, almost like a AMG line Mercedes. It kind of has those lines running through it that makes it look that little bit more aggressive. Now, something that's on this G-Shock that isn't on many other G-Shocks is actually sapphire crystal glass with anti-reflective coating. Normally you just get kind of like a plasticky kind of glass, but this is actually good stuff. This watch comes in black, but you do get other variants. For example, there is a green variant, a kind of dark forest green variant, and also kind of like a brownie colored variant. They both look pretty damn sexy. However, for me, when it comes to the outdoors, I quite like that military inspired feel. I like those military inspired colors, so I would maybe go with the green here. The model I've actually got on currently is the GWG-B1000-1A, and this is the black variant. Looking closer at the case and the, I was gonna say bezel, but it doesn't really have a bezel on this watch. It's kind of just like a futuristic metal component thing. It's pretty cool. So when we look at the colors that they've used, they kind of have a contrast between stainless steel, which looks quite white, especially in this light, and also black. Now for the iconic pusher at the 6 o'clock mark, which controls, of course, the Casio light, they've actually used kind of like a gold color, and it looks pretty sick. It looks really cool, and it actually contrasts wonderfully with that kind of overall aesthetic of this watch. This watch has two pushers on either side, both the right and the left, and they both control different functionality. And that's what we're going to talk about now. We're going to dive into the face of this watch and go over that brilliant functionality. And it's just packed full of stuff that you could spend days on this watch and still not know everything that it does. It's incredible. Okay, listen guys, the features on this watch are pretty lengthy, but let's try and get through them. So this watch features radio frequency, radio wave reception, which is automatic and is updated about 6 times a day, apart from use in China, which is only up to 5 times a day.
Don't ask me why, because I'm not too sure. It has a digital compass, a barometer, an altimeter, which measures altitude, which is pretty damn cool. It has a thermometer, which we did have time to test in the sauna. It of course shows world time in 38 time zones, 55 cities, plus coordinated universal time. It of course has a stopwatch, which we all kind of know about already, and it has a countdown timer. It has an alarm. Actually, it has 5 independent daily alarms, which is pretty damn mental. It also has a mobile link, which can link this to your phone wirelessly through Bluetooth. However, for me, I don't like to do that. I like to try and keep my phone separate from my timepieces.
When we go inside the face of this watch, we can see that it's highly contrasting and it is quite busy. However, the only reason that it's busy is because there's a ton of different stuff to play with on this watch. It's kind of like a tech person's watch. They love it because there's so much to play with. Will they ever actually use the features? Probably not, but it's cool that it does it. Now they do use little linings, little details that are quite cool. For example, the hands in the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock mark are kind of in like a camo-y light green color. And then when we look at the Mudmaster logo, it is in red, and also there's a couple of other red highlights and yellow and quite bold flecks of color that we love seeing from Casio and G-Shock, because it's one of the only brands that can do this and get away with it. Now this all seems quite complicated. There's tons of features to get used to, tons of features to wrap your head around. But the way that I would liken it to is kind of like getting a new car. The first week, the first 2 weeks, you're kind of getting your bearings, but after those 2 weeks, it's like riding a bike. You know how to do it. And honestly, after wearing this for 2 weeks, or a week and a half-ish, I kind of understand it, I kind of get it. And it was a big thing for me because I was coming from purely automatic watches. G-Shock are renowned for being tough. They're renowned for being resistant. They're renowned to pretty much withstand anything. And honestly, on this trip, everything has broken. The drones.
So that's the drone's blade frozen. The drone's glass in the front is just totally frozen. The sensors are frozen. The battery's stuck in the drone, frozen.
The FPV drones.
So we've just got back to the car and we've had another nightmare because of the cold. Gregor, what's happened?
We've had a couple of incidents on this trip with drones and issues and braking. On this one, we now have a prop guard which is broken, which isn't a massive problem. What is a problem though is that with the cold, the plastic has become so brittle that even the smallest of crashes has caused the GoPro mount to completely rip off. I'm not sure if you can see that.
It's just detached.
Yep, it's completely snapped off from a 3D printed part. We've tried to attach this just now, but it's not going to work. Also the Mavic drone, the props that fold out have completely froze and now do not open. So
the car literally breaking down.
Nah. Now, I'm no expert, but I think it's
Yes.
Everything has broken, but this G-Shock has been fine. The resistance of this watch is made extra great, extra resistant if you will, because of a certain feature. The protector parts on this watch at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock guards the watch's glass, which is typically the most shock susceptible. And they are treated with a diamond-like carbon DLC coating to provide even greater abrasion resistance. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you here. The most harsh environment that I could think of when Casio gave me this G-Shock to test was Finland. And it has survived everything that I have thrown at it. Apart from one thing that I've noticed. It has solar powering. It's a solar powered watch. And Finland gets very little light. Actually, it only gets between 2 and 3 hours at the moment if you're lucky. And most of the time it's cloudy. That might be the only snag to this pretty damn durable watch. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this mission to test this G-Shock. We've had some pretty good fun. We've been on snowmobiles, we've been cutting around in -30. I'm gonna go back to the sauna and test this watch in the heat. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.